Listen. Every day, all day. This is how we roll. This is 97.9, the BOX.
Hey.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Terri?
I'm great. It's great to see your face. It's been a while.
Hey, great to be seen. Yeah, this pandemic has had us all kind of in the house and hiding.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
thank you so much for the invitation. Glad to be here.
I'm super happy that you could join us. So let me set the stage for people tapping in. If you are here for the business behind the music. And I'm Terri Thomas. I'm the operations manager for Radio 103 Houston, which means I program 97.9 The Box, Magic 102.1, Radio Now 92.1. We also have our online inspiration station, which is Praise Houston. So if you love that, I hope you check that out. And the business behind the music is for people aspiring to be in the music entertainment business. We talk things for artists, producers, and all of that. We also talk about careers for people aspiring to be in the game. And we just touch on a lot of different aspects of the business. So if you're here, you're looking for some information on that. Very excited to have our guest. I've known for a very long time. He is a Texas icon and legend in the music business, but I would say living in Texas, but his footprint is national, as his title as National Senior Director of Promotion for Epic Records. I am honored and privileged to have Butch Hartfield join the conversation this morning. So good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, and glad to be here. Glad to be here. Just wanted to get a little bit into my background, I guess so
yes,
people kind of know
great.
who I am, because
Yes.
everybody don't know me.
Like, I know you, but you're a behind the scenes person. Like, if you don't know, you don't know, right?
Oh,
So
right. I'm very behind the scenes.
yeah. So let's go ahead and let's do that. So first of all, let me tag the sponsor, Houston BMW Center Studios. It's right here, baby. Trying to work it in, about sponsorship.
Right.
And absolutely, let's get into your background. Like, how did you come to be in this game we call music?
Well, like a lot of people on the industry side, I started in radio. I did my first 8 years in radio. I kind of grew up in radio. I was down in Jackson, Mississippi. That's where I grew up, and I was with a guy that I know you know, Tommy Marshall.
Yes.
Yeah, and believe it or not, most people know Tommy from his Interscope Records and Death Row days over there with Step Johnson. But before Tommy was a music man extraordinaire, he was a really big radio guy and radio personality. And I met Tommy when I was about 14 on the basketball court. And I was like, "Hey man, I wanna come by the station. I wanna be a mixer. I wanna get a mix show." So he was like, "Well, set an appointment, man. Come by, see me. You know what you get when you see people out." And I was persistent, and about 6 months later, I had a meeting with him, and he got me on air, and I was an intern / mixer from the time I was 14 throughout high school.
Yeah.
And those years were kind of invaluable in my foundation, because it was a really kind of a golden age in Mississippian radio. There was a lot of people making transitions through there that had been on major markets, and it was a wealth of knowledge and information. And Tommy was also the president of the Young Black Programmers Coalition, which was a national radio coalition. And because of that, it kind of exposed me to a lot of artists and a lot of music business executives that you wouldn't have normally gotten to see in a market, that size. So it was just a great, experience in growing up. And so I go off to college. I do college radio in Marshall, Texas, at KPWC over at Wiley College. Shout out to Wiley. And I'm there for about a year, and I get homesick. So I end up going back to Jackson and going to college there. I'm working for Tommy on the weekend over at WKXI, and a full-time position becomes available. And I'm kind of burned out on school, And I know you probably had that experience with people coming back saying, "Hey Terri," and Tommy let a couple of positions pass because he didn't want me to leave school, because he's kind of like, well, if you leave school, You probably won't go back. And he was
True.
right. I left and I didn't go back.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's better probably to stick through. But for me, I think it was time for me to make that transition. And I ended up working throughout the Mississippi area at various stations. I did album-oriented rock. I did what we had back then. We didn't have rhythm crossover, so I did Churban radio.
Churban, yes.
Churban, exactly. In fact, I was on air with a guy that was on down in Houston, Dave Morales.
Yes, yes. Still here.
Exactly. Me and Dave did radio
Morales,
for
legend.
years. Yeah, so he's an old friend. So we did radio, and Jay Michaels was here too. Jamming Jay
Wow.
Michaels.
Yep.
Yeah. So we had a good little crew of people who came through the area, and you know, still sharp and still, and everybody kind of grew and moved on. I ended up being a program director and operations manager at a station about 60 miles outside of Jackson, WLTD in Lexington. And but during this time, while I'm kind of, you know, doing my radio thing early on, Tommy has transitioned to Capitol Records.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer in the radio side; he's in the record side. And he's like, "Hey, you know, I think, you know, you might like this side because as I was in radio, I had a club, I had a television show." I'm on air, so a lot of artists would come through the marketplace, and I was like a one-stop promo shop for them. They could come in, and I could do TV, I could do radio with them, and then I could book them in my club, and I could do, you know, an appearance with them. So end up starting to develop relationships with those various artists that were coming through. And one of the artists that I developed a really good relationship with was MC Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was on Capitol, so I kind of helped Tommy with his project, and I got really close with him. And his first album sold 2 million copies with double platinum, and it was like, you know, huge for Capitol Records. So I bumped into him in Mobile, Alabama, and he's like, "Hey man, look, Capitol's gonna give me a label deal for my next album." And I was like, "Cool." I was like, "What's a label deal?"
Right? Now,
you know,
like
nobody knew what a label deal was. I'm like, "What's a label deal?" And he's like, "Oh, they're gonna let me hire my own staff, and I'll basically have an imprint on the label, and I can hire my own people, and I want to hire you." So I'm like, "Cool, you know, let me know," because I'm like, you know, I'm ready for a new challenge. I think I'm ready to leave and stretch and see if I can come on that side and do something. So he said, okay. So it took like a year. I'd bump into him different places, and he and his brother Louis Burrell, and they'd be like, "Hey, we didn't forget about you, man." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, all right." A year later, I get a call, and they're like, "Hey, we're putting everything together. We're ready for you to come over." I came over. That was my first job in the industry, was Busted/Capitol Records.
Right.
Great experience. Was over there for about 2 years. Had no idea what I was doing. I had to work for a real record boss for the first time.
Okay.
And we bumped heads. So what he did was I would always, I didn't know how to play politics. So when I would have an issue, I just went straight to the artist. You know, so big no going around your boss.
The little thing called protocol, kind of.
Yeah. So what he did was, hey, look, they were so successful that they went over to Europe for 2 months on a tour. So probably about the time they got in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, my boss was calling me with HR. It said, "Hey, you know, we're gonna make a move." So you know, so I've had the greatest job in the world for 2 years, and now I'm out. I don't have enough experience to get another record job.
Right.
So I go back to Jackson because they have me working out of splitting my time between Atlanta and Dallas. So I go back to Jackson, and I just go back to what I know. I'm doing clubs. I'm working part-time at the radio station, waiting on something to happen. I get a call a year later, and they said, "Hey, we just got a new management team. We're relocating the label to Los Angeles, and we want you to come back." But instead of
who called?
Louis Burrell, Hammer's brother. Yeah.
Funny, I have a conversation set up with him this week actually to talk about doing a series. So that's kind
Oh,
of
okay. Oh, definitely. Well, hey, look, he's got a wealth of information.
okay. Very cool. So Louis Burrell calls you a year later.
He calls and says, "Hey, look, this time instead of Dallas, we're gonna send you to Houston and see if you can make this work." So I come to Houston, and everything's going great. You know, Houston becomes. I never really thought about Houston as far as working out of Houston, but Houston became just an oasis for me. All the doors open, and it's going great. We're a year in, and I get a call from my new boss who had come over from Capitol Records. His name was Howard Geiger.
Yeah.
And Howard says, "Hey, man, you've done a great job. I appreciate all your work, but Capitol's closing the label down. So hopefully we can work together in the future because you did a great job, but it's a wrap." So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the second time in 4 years that I've been displaced. Am I barking up the wrong tree? Do I need to go back and just do radio and leave this record side wrong? But something told me just kind of stay in Houston and ride it out, because out of the cities I worked in at that point, Atlanta, Dallas, and Houston really seemed like home. You know, the community, the radio, the independent artists, everybody kind of opened up. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna ride it out in Houston and see what happens. So I got on with an independent label in Houston called Jamal Records. Mm-hmm. It was Hakeem Olajuwon's cousin, Abby Akiola. And he had an artist, a male group called Groove U. And we were able to get a pretty big single going in the region, and they got signed to Atlantic Records, Craig Coleman's son. Mm-hmm. So that got a little attention. So there was a huge distributor in the marketplace called Southwest Wholesale. Yeah. The owner's name was Robert Gilliman. And Robert wanted to meet me because he asked Abby, you know, who's helping you with your promotions? I get all these guys come in and they say we got promotion guys, and I never really get what I think I should get. So they introduced me to your guy. I meet Robert, we hit it off. So now I'm getting access to all the independent acts in Houston. I'm getting all the guys from Louisiana, Master P, all the different guys that are coming through there. I'm getting access, and at the same time, Arista Records puts on a street team, right? Which is a huge deal at the time because everybody doesn't have a street team. Now everybody's had a street team forever, but at that time nobody had a street team really. There were about maybe 3 labels that had a street team. So Arista puts on the street team. I go over there and work with Lionel Ridenhour, and Shanti Das is running the LaFace part of the street team. Yes. So have a great run. Everything's going good. But you know, I'm basically hustling. I'm still looking for a home. So Priority Records ends up putting on their first field stage. So I go to work for Priority Records. I get a great run with Priority. Are you still based in Houston at this time? I'm still based in Houston. Based in Houston for Priority. So, and as far as I'm concerned, I can stay in Houston forever at that point. So I know the feeling. Yeah, exactly. So my next gig, my boss leaves at Priority. He leaves to go to Virgin, and Virgin already has a staff, so he can't take anybody with him. So I'm kind of stuck at Priority. And, you know, when your boss leaves in the record business, your first instinct is, especially after my experiences, I'm like, okay, I need to find a job. Because the new guy's going to come in and he's going to want his own people and he's going to get rid of them. So I start interviewing, and a guy named Don Eason hires me to go to Perspective Records, which was part of A&M. They had given Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis their own label. That's called right. Perspective Records. So they had like Mint Condition, Low Key, Barry White, Sounds of Blackness. So it was really active at the time. So Don hired me, but he said, hey, you got to move to Dallas. I'm like, do I have to move to Dallas? Because like I'm
Only
good.
4 hours. Why do we need to move?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's a Southwest flight, or I can drive up. I'll go up to this. He said, dude, the branch is in Dallas, because at that time, everybody worked, the major record labels, you worked out of a branch. And they were part of Polygram. Polygram had an office in Dallas, so he wanted me working out of the Polygram office. So I packed up, I moved to Dallas. And when I get to Dallas, I work for Perspective for about 2 years. And then Don leaves and goes to work for Quincy Jones at Quest Records.
Right.
And they're part of Warner Brothers, so he can't take anybody with him. So I'm like, oh my goodness.
What is happening?
Every time I find somebody I can work for, they go get a job somewhere and they can't take me. So Don leaves and he says, I tell you what, take some time off and go interview, find you a job. So I'm talking to a couple of people and I get a call from Lionel right now.
Yeah.
With Arrested. He said, I hear y'all in LA looking for jobs.
Okay.
I said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, my boss is leaving. I'm going to need an opportunity, this, that, and other. He said, hey, if you want to come over here, go back home, and we'll put something together, and in 2 weeks, I'll give you a call. Great, no problem. Like, who doesn't want to go to Arrested? This time,
Right. Major label.
Right, they had just done the deal with Rowdy Records, so they had Dallas Austin, who had Monica. They had done the deal with Puff, so they had Notorious Big. They had Craig Mack. They had Faith Evans on the way, and you know, you had the Arista Proper acts, which were Whitney Houston.
Right.
You know, Kenny G. So you know, talent was going to be amazing. So I'm like, this is going to be great. So I go over to work at Arista, had a great 4-year run at Arista. They make me a national. It's the first place I became a national. And I'm loving it. But I started getting offers to be a VP. And
nice.
entertaining, hey, it's great. I'm entertaining those offers. And I get an offer from DreamWorks.
Right.
Gerald Busby was over at DreamWorks. DreamWorks was starting the urban music division. They had become a very successful film company, and they wanted to develop and do their own soundtracks, and also create a venue for to develop new talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to Lionel about it, and Lionel was like, "I don't have anywhere for you to grow right now, so you know, go ahead, do your thing, and wish you the best." So I go over, and I'm at DreamWorks for about 2.5 years, and it's a small label with small label challenges, but a big company.
Right.
So small label, big expectations. So a wonderful experience. I moved to Los Angeles for that job, so it's great being a music man in LA. We get about 2 years in, and I get that tap on the shoulder. They say, hey, look, you're great. This is not quite going how we thought it was going to go. We want to go in a different direction. Hey, okay. So I go back. I said, that's fine. I was like, I definitely didn't want to stay in Los Angeles. I wanted to come back to Dallas because I kind of got used to the Texas lifestyle. By this time, I had gotten married and I had twins.
Okay.
So I got 3-year-old twins. I'm looking at quality of life, and I was like, I want my kids to go to those good Texas schools.
Right.
And so I come back to Dallas, and Lionel calls me, and he says, "Hey, I still don't have a VP job." He said, "But if you want to come back and you want to be a national, I'll let you stay in Dallas, and you can be a national. You don't have to move." So I was like, great. I go back to Arista. We get 2 years of Arista. You get the call.
Oh my God.
Louder calls. He says, hey, they're going in a different direction. So he said, I got to let you go, and I'll be leaving today as well.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so they kind of did a half cleaning house. They got rid of half of the team, and they kept half of the team. So so it was cool. So after that, I said, you know what? There's been a lot of transition. Let me hang, as you told me once, let me hang my shingle out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just do my thing and sit here. I'm gonna consult for a while.
There you go.
So I consulted a few labels and just really enjoyed my time with my family. Took some vacations, took a break, and I get a call from Benny P. Now, me and Benny at this time have a long history because Benny was actually on the staff at Perspective Group. And he also went to Arista from Perspective maybe a couple of months before I went.
Okay.
So we worked together a couple of times, and we were both VPs in LA at the same time. So we spent a lot of time together in LA. And he said, "Hey man, I'm leaving MCA."
Okay.
I'm like, "Okay." He said, "I'm moving back to New York," because he's a New Yorker. And he said, I'm going to go to Def Jam. And that was kind of shocking because Def Jam was one of those companies where they pretty much always promoted from within. You didn't really see executives coming from the outside going to Def Jam. Def Jam was a family, and it was a family you were pretty much born into.
Okay.
So that was a big move for them to bring Benny up. And he says, "Hey, I'm going to have you do some consulting. And as I get over and figure it out, I think I want you to come on." I said, "Okay, great." So he calls me about 6 months in. He brings me over, and we have a great run for, 6 years, 5, 6 years.
It was a while.
It was a great run. And then I get the call.
When did you even answer the phone?
I'm like, oh my goodness! I get the call. Yeah. It was a rough one. It was one of those 6 o'clock in the morning and you're on the road calls.
Okay. Like, oh yeah, hey, by the way.
Yeah, hey, what's going on, Benny? What's happening? And he says, "Hey man, look, friends a long time. I think you're getting a little burned out. We want to go in a different direction. We're gonna definitely continue to work together, this, that, and the other, but I think I want to go in a different direction down there." And I said, "Hey, look, I can't do anything but respect that. It's a business move. I understood completely." Yeah. So I go back and I probably have like just 2 great years. I mean, just great years with my kids. By this time, I got a little place in the country.
Right.
Yeah, which goes back to kind of the balance of the business. You got to keep balance. And I got to spend a lot of time for 2 years with my kids. I got to start a business with my dad, a food business with him.
This is when you got into the turkeys, smoked turkey.
Right. I started. My dad's been doing those. My dad has a fried turkey business, and he's been doing those turkeys for years. And I was able to make it a real business for him, actually give it some scale and some volume, and help him start Uncle Ray's Fried Turkeys over there. And he's been rolling with that since. We opened a restaurant, so that was a real fun experience. And I get a call 2 years in. I'm consulting at the same time, doing some work for different people. Shadow Stokes, who's a good friend of ours, he really put his arms around me and kept me busy during that time. Benny actually kept his arms around me. We maintained our friendship. He kept me busy. Between those two, it was almost like I never went anywhere.
Right.
To the point that Benny just called one day and said, "Why don't you just come back to work?"
Probably cheaper, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. He's like, why don't you just come back to work? And I was like, okay. I was like, hey, let me run it up the flagpole at the house. But I cool, because by that time, anybody that loves doing what you're doing, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna get, there's times where you're gonna be a little burned out. You might be a little tired, and you may step away for a minute. But if you love it, when you've been away for a few minutes, you're gonna want to come right back.
Right.
So I was definitely ready to come back. Had 2 great years. And then he calls me again. He says, hey man, I'm leaving. I'm going to L.A. Reid, who was running Def Jam at that time, had gone about 6 months earlier to Epic.
Yeah.
And Benny says, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going with L.A. We don't have a staff or anything, but you know, down the line, definitely, you know, you my guy. If something comes available, you know, I'd love for you to come over at some point. So I said, cool. So I'm staying there at Def Jam. I'm doing my day-to-day, and as the new management, you know, kind of gets indoctrinated over there, they start to make their changes. And you know, so Rodney Shirley calls me one day and says, hey, you know, Butch, you know, appreciate everything. We're gonna go in a different direction. We're trying to do some different things with the staff. Appreciate your work. Don't worry about it. I know you're gonna be fine, but you know, we're basically going in a different direction. So that happened, and the next day, Benny calls.
Okay.
Yeah, and Benny calls. Yeah, he said, hey, you know, heard about the changes. We're probably a couple of months away from scaling up over here. So when we scale up, hey, you're my first phone call. Don't worry about it. You're good. So came over to Epic 11 years ago, and it's, you know, been a great run. Enjoyed it. Still enjoying it. And that's kind of the tale of how I got to where I am.
I love it. I love it. There's so much to be learned by your story. I think somebody mentioned earlier on in the comments, it's sort of, you know, you went the path that you felt was best for you. And I think that's important to note. Like, you knew intuitively, you know, we're both, I think, you know, you have kids and you know, we have a friendship. So I know that you're an athlete in education for sure, but also with some understanding that, you know, there's different ways to get an education.
Definitely.
And you can go
and on-the-job training is a big one. I know you're a huge proponent of internships.
Absolutely.
And I think internships, mentorships, really apprenticeships.
Yes.
Is what you have to have in this business. You know, I speak at schools, and I look at their curriculum, and a lot of my friends who are in radio with me, they actually teach at schools in music business courses or in the radio and television and film division. And there's a lot that they can teach to prepare students for it, but there's a whole nother level of education you're gonna have to get to be functional in this business, I think, on the radio and the record side. I can remember sitting in your office maybe 6 years ago, and a student actually called from my old college, from Wiley College.
Yes.
And she's running down, hey, you know, this is what I've been trained on, this is what I can do. And you're sitting there kind of like, and I'm like, you know what? Let me give you my number. I'm like, here, is it okay if I give her my number and exchange some information and help? And you like, yeah, no problem. You know, jump in. And I was able, because I actually knew her instructor from radio, and you know, I was alumnus of the school, and I wanted to jump in and kind of help. But I think a lot of times the internships are overlooked as how important they are in your development in this business. Because, you know, everybody wants to kind of jump in now. Just hire me, give me a title and a corporate card, and I got it from here.
Truth. I mean, that's true. I think it's any opportunity that you have in the game, and I literally mean any opportunity. I think it's really, you know, one, listening. A lot of people come in the door doing this. It's what I do, what I'm about, what I'm trying to do. And an essential part of growing in the game is really being able to sit in silence and listen and pay attention. It's one of the reasons I sort of appreciate the series that we do here. I see a lot of people regularly pop in. They may or may not ask a question, but they're regularly present. And I feel that because I feel like there's a lot of listening going on. and learning. And I think that that's really special. So I think one of the key elements for the game is your ability to listen. So whenever you get the opportunity to be in an environment in which you would like to see yourself in the future, it's really stepping back, it's listening, it's paying attention. Who's in the room? What are the conversations? I'm a big proponent of when you network. We all have one of these, right? Some of us have
Right. Mm-hmm.
So when you're in an environment, however you got to be there, whether it's an internship or you just happen to get into an event with a lot of people and you like to be in the business that they're in, it's really who's there. You're writing down notes, right? Who's in the room? What are you learning from the conversation? So if you're witnessing a conversation between me and Butch, you happen to be at, I don't know, an awards banquet or whatever, some event, right? We're there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You happen to be in the vicinity, there's a group of people standing around, there's a conversation happening. You're able to identify who's who, writing down notes about those individuals, because what it does is it shows that you paid attention. You're starting to learn about the person so that when you have an opportunity to make an in-person connection, you have a launching pad to start a conversation that is more than what you are and what you're trying to do. Now, I think everybody needs to have an elevator pitch, right?
Right.
You may not know what an elevator pitch is, but maybe you get in the elevator with Butch. You got, 10 floors before 9 floors before he gets off at the 9th floor.
You got to get it in.
Freeway, and you got, 60 seconds to pitch your project. You do need to have that as well. So they're two separate things. But I think a lot of what's missing is for people to listen. And then also, I always look for the person who's willing to pick up the piece of paper in the middle of the floor. I really observe that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done this actually, dropped a piece of paper, crumpled on the floor, gone to get a person, it's obvious that there's trash on the floor. And I look to see who might stop and pick it up.
Well, you got to be willing to do the things that other people aren't willing to do.
That's right.
And you got to take your ego and your pride out of it. Especially with the advent of social media, everybody wants to be a star.
Right.
But a lot of times, the real stars and the real star makers kind of sit in the back.
Yeah.
And then obviously an artist has got to be at the front of the room. But everybody else, I've always thought could sit at the back and support kind of in silence. It's about, also just soaking up that knowledge. Like you say, a lot of people come in a room, and when they get in the room, they're so busy talking that nobody's doing any listening.
Right.
And it's reaching out to those people. I viewed a lot of people when I came in as resources. So when I got in the room, I really took advantage of trying to ask, smart questions and get information that would help me grow. Hey, look, if all I ever do is I'm in the room with Terri Thomas for 5 minutes, what did I get out of it? And then what did I offer? Because also I have to respect your value, but I also have to be of that.
Yes.
Because if you're who I think you are, if you're who I know you are, then you're not going to really want to waste your time with somebody of no value.
Right.
So I have to kind of show, quick story. I moved to New Orleans for Arista my first year because they didn't have any place to put me. So they created a New Orleans local position. Mm-hmm. And they said, since you're down there, get you a street team person, because all the people had street team people. Right. And the person, I didn't have anybody down there. So I let New York just pick somebody for me.
Okay.
And it was, I would go by the guy's office and all my posters are on the floor. I'm like, none of my stuff's getting done.
Right.
So I'm riding down St. Charles Street where the trolleys go in New Orleans in my car. And I stopped at a red light and I see a guy get off the trolley with a 6-foot ladder, a staple gun, and posters under his arm. He puts up posters and then he gets back on the trolley and rides down to the next block. So I go down, I make a U-turn and I come around and I'm like, dude, what's your name? Because I got to have you on my street team. Whoever got you on this, I'm hiring you on my street team because anybody that will ride on a trolley and carry all
With
this
a
stuff
ladder.
and with a ladder and jump out 100-degree weather and put up posters, I need to know who you are. Guys, they call him Godfather. And he was on my street teams in some aspects of like the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Because just, I'm like, here's a guy that's not going to let anything obstruct him. What I found out was he didn't have a car. But he didn't let that stop him from being a street team person, and that's what you want. You want the person that finds a way where there is no way.
I love it. Butch, we do have some good questions.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna go through a few here. So CDG can't get, I guess, or CDG, we'll just stop at that. All right, question is this. How do you put on artists if they're not feeling the whole direction of music going digital? What holes should I take if management of talent becomes a drag when it comes to digital? So, I mean, I think it's really speaking to the digital conversation. I know you've been in the game a long time. You're talking about things like street teams and things like that, and they're still out there, but there's a whole other world that is developed where.
Well, I mean, digital's obviously been the new frontier for about 10 years.
Sure.
But there's people that do that. Some people just do music, and if you're a manager and you got artists that just come in, and I think it's okay for an artist just to be an artist. It's great that some artists are fluent at social media, they're fluent at the technology. You got artists that are fluent at the business. They really don't even need a lawyer or a manager. They can manage themselves. But most of us aren't, I know I can speak for myself, are not good at multiple things. You kind of water down your direction when you're trying to do 12 things. As a manager, I would develop my own digital team. And then when artists came to me who didn't have a great knowledge of those digital platforms, I can help that artist, develop on the digital side. One, we can teach them,
Sure,
or her the digital portion of it, and two, as they while they're learning it, I have a team in place that can do that digital portion for them.
I think you hit on a good thing, and CDG followed up. He's actually from artist from South Africa, so thanks for tapping in. And he's meeting Loophole. So he says the South African market is very different from international, and I would say sure, every market has its nuance, but I do think Butch is hitting on a really strong thing. You're not going to be great at everything. I will always say this to an artist: you are the CEO of your business. There's you as the artist, right? So there's Terri Thomas, the artist, and then there's Teresa, right? That's me, Teresa, who is the CEO of Terri Thomas. So you have to view yourself like a business. And the things, like when you have a business, a good business owner is very shrewd and understands what they are great at and what they need help with. So in order to be competitive nationally, internationally, and even though the South African market may be different at this moment, we all know that everything sort of funnels in the same direction. So you could actually get ahead of the game if you may take Butch's suggestion, which is pull together a team, hire a team to handle the things that you don't know, hire people you can learn from that are willing to teach you. If you're hiring somebody and they're not willing to break it down for you so that you have a great understanding of what they're doing and you're learning in the process as well, you've hired the wrong person. Because anybody who's really great at what they do, they're confident in their ability, and they're not shy about helping
sharing the knowledge, sharing the information with you. Exactly. I tell people that all the time. If you're out and you're hiring contractors to do different things, and they're not sharing the information, then you got the wrong person. I know you had Troy Marshall on.
Yes, I did.
And he's one of those great guys that, I'll tell artists, hey, go because he's going to teach you as you go. And you got to have people like that.
Yeah, agreed. So if you're hiring people that won't teach you, then you've hired the wrong person. So CDG, hire a team, because you don't want to leave out the important digital space. I mean, that
Mhm.
has made the music business in the world even smaller, and you're
Yeah.
leaving opportunity on the table when you don't put yourself where consumers are.
And
So,
South Africa is coming. Africa is coming fast and in a hurry. So,
absolutely.
you got to get up on it right now. Shout out to,
Absolutely.
I see my man Lavelle in there. He's an independent artist from Kansas City. So I just
I
want to
love
say
it.
what's up. I see you, Lavelle.
All right, the sound of H-Town. How did you stay upbeat and not get discouraged during all of the changes that you went through in the business?
Well, I think that's how you know you're doing the right thing. If you have a passion for something and you really love what you do, then that's the test. You haven't tested you don't know your relationship with anything until it's been tested. So I think I needed those ups and downs, those trials and tribulations to let me know I was really on the correct path. And believe it or not, I never really got discouraged during any of those times. It just motivated me, you know. I got broke a couple of times, but I never got discouraged.
Right,
I always knew it's all about the next opportunity. It's all about the next, because I always felt like I had something to offer.
right.
And I think that's it. I think that's the kind of the tail of the tape of, am I doing the right thing? Um, am I on the right course? And do I have something to offer? When new artists come out, when a label has a position, can I go help them? Can I give them something that I feel like only I can give?
I think that's really important. I think the most important journey that a person can go on in this life is the journey of self-discovery. You know,
Hmm.
really knowing who you are, what your magic is, what you're good at, what you're not good at. A
Hmm.
lot of times it's also knowing what's not for you so that you can make choices. Sometimes things look great on paper, but when you peel
Hmm.
back the layers, it's not really an opportunity that's going to suit you or it's really suit your strengths and talents. And so I think it's important also to know what you're not good at and really know what your superpowers is, because superpowers are, because that really
Oh,
helps.
definitely. I think with me, I realized I wasn't necessarily a New York and LA office kind of guy. I was more of a drill sergeant than an officer.
Right.
I like being in the field. I like touching. I'm from radio, so I like being with radio. It's like family. It's like coming home when I walk
Yeah.
in the radio station. So radio is my people. And artists are my people.
Yeah.
So the perfect world for me is being out where I'm connecting artists with radio, with club owners, with promoters, with managers, with producers in the studio. That's I'm very comfortable in those spaces, and then just sharing the information and helping in any way I can.
This kind of touches on what you're talking about a little bit, again, from the Sound of H-Town. What skills and lessons that you learned in radio that you took with you to the record side? I think that's a really good question.
What skills did I learn? I think my interpersonal skills.
I was going to
Just,
say,
just
if I
dealing
had to
with
hazard a
people.
guess, I
Yeah,
would say that would be it. Yeah.
There's different types of, in any business, there's different types of characters. You got 4 or 5 different characters in every walk you meet in life. In radio, I was one of those radio guys that I was cool with everybody. All the record people I was good with. People come in and hang out with me, stay 2 days in the marketplace. Uh, the artists come in, hang out with me. It's no sit out in the lobby for 3 hours and wait on me. Today is my music day. Call me between 2 and 4. I wasn't that guy. I was just me, and it served me well when I came to the record side because I took the same approach. It was just like I was calling my friends and we was talking about records. artists, and we was talking about artists, and we was talking about what's going on with your station. You know, I've never been, you know, we have a lot of technical information in on the music side now. You know, we've got media base,
A lot of resources.
Right. We've got a ton of things, you know, stream, Spotify, this, that, and other. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that call you, and that's the extent of their conversation. You know, hey, Terri, my record is number 5 on the chart this week. We're up a plus 350. WGCI Chicago's added in this, that, and other.
Wow. Hopefully I've trained my team well not to come at me like that. But yes. Like, I don't live in Chicago. I live in Houston. I don't.
Yeah. They're reading it. They're reading it down the list to you, and they're going. And now I need you to add this record. And I need it. You're like, okay, yeah, get back with me next week. So I think my skill set. What I really learned from it was it's a business of relationships, a business of communication. And I think that's what I learned. I learned how important relationships are.
Yeah.
And being able to communicate to people. Those are the 2 biggest things that I learned.
And I think too, I think you're very good at this, great at it actually, is you learn about the person and you learn what matters to them as they put together their station. And I've always loved that about you. You fight for your audience. I mean, there's no question of that. But I think you also took the time to understand, you know, not only what are we trying to build, but why, like sort of the why behind what the moves are. And because I've heard you say before, you know, it might be a project that, you know, Tracy's like, hey, Butch, whatever on the project. And you could say to Tracy, no, well, you know, it's not going to fit in this moment because of this, what she's doing right now. But if we do A, B, and C, we can position the record better, but we have more work to do, or whatever the case be. So I always really love that about you there. It's more than just charts to you. I know that charts is how you get your report card, and that's a goal. But for you, it's also how can your artist, how can the music that Epic has to bring to the table help the radio station, help the program director achieve their goals, right? Because we're all in the business here. And I think while you're doing your business, you're very cognizant of how your business can help the business at the station. And I always think that that's very special quality that you in particular bring to the table.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I try to look at it as a win-win for everybody. As coming from radio, I understand that first and foremost, your obligation is to put the best product out there forward, and to also do the best job for your listeners. And honestly, sometimes, you know, listeners in Houston want to hear what listeners in Houston want to hear. Yeah. They may not want to hear what listeners in Chicago want to hear, or listeners in Dallas want to hear. And your presentation of the product is even different. Right. You know, hey, this is what artists do in Houston. They do our IG. They come into the marketplace. They come interview at the station. They go to schools. They go here, you know, because I think also, like, you've been a resource for me within the marketplace, because it may be an artist or a situation that is not going to fit what you're doing right now. Yeah. But you know, and this is all about asking people questions. You'll give me a roadmap. Okay, Terri, you're not ready for this yet, but I think this artist and this particular single will have some value and it can resonate in the marketplace. What do I need to do to get it started down there? What are your suggestions, this, that, and other? And you may say, well, hey, you know, have you talked to the DJs about it? Have you talked to the mixers about it? What's the feedback from, you know, the clubs about it? Or, you know, then, you know, it's a dialogue. And it's always easier to get things accomplished when it's a real dialogue and it's not just me trying to sell you on something.
I had that conversation recently, and I know you work this format as well, which is like the Magic 102 formats, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was interesting because there's a lot of new artists that are finding some space in that format, which is wonderful. But there's also very established artists that still very much live in the space. And so we were talking. There's a record that somebody was working, and then Charlie Wilson drops a record. I got to be honest with you, my audience doesn't need to figure out who Charlie Wilson is. He has a sound that's very distinctive on the radio station, immediately cut through. Like a few days later, Ralph Tresvant drops a record with Johnny Gill. Now, you may think that it's a Ralph record, a Johnny record, a New Edition record. It doesn't really matter to me, but there's a distinctive sound. And when I hear the texture of the radio station, that particular record cuts through in a way that some other artists and records may not. And so I went back and was discussing with my record partner. It's like, look, we've got to work together to get more creative in how these new artists that you're trying to have a home in formats like this can connect better with the audience so that the audience understands their sound. Because you can do a whole playlist of these similar artists and you don't know who's who from who. But you could put Charlie Wilson on a playlist, it's going to sound different from a Ralph Tresvant, it's going to sound different. So there can be a lot of sameness in the business, and I think it's really important as an artist that you establish your identity. That's why I strongly encourage people not to shy away from the social spaces. And if you use the social spaces properly, you can really establish who you are and allow your personality to be able to connect with people and really personally connect with people that could become your fan base, because you're in this online space where people can comment and you can interact back, where you can see and get real-time feedback from people, where you can make your fans, well, turn your followers really into fans. And we talk about that a lot here because your fans put the gas in the engine of your career. And when they feel like, when you can hear a song and you've heard it for the first time and you immediately know who that artist is. Right. That's equity for radio. That's equity for us. And we'll go into another convo another day about how call out research and how that works. That's going to take longer than what we
look, that's great information and great information travels, because I think you had that conversation with somebody and within that week I heard that information. And I was like, wait a minute. I got a new artist on Magic. Let me get busy.
Yeah. And so, in fact, yeah, you did hear that conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I did hear that conversation.
but the cool thing about it was, like, we're both engaged in the conversation. It's like, for me, what I get joy in is like, okay, there is a challenge here. And I'm telling you because, I'm on the front line here of what that challenge is. And I'm telling you that this isn't cutting through because of this reason. So you clearly believe in the project. I'm cool with that. I don't think the record's bad. It's not that. It's that this artist is not cutting through and connecting with the audience. So creatively, what can we all do in this market, because that's the only market I care about, in this market, to help this artist connect with potential fans so that when that connection happens and a record could go into the playlist, it helps the radio station and it resonates with the audience. And so there's not an easy answer to that, but it does open a dialogue of being creative and trying things. And I will say that all the time.
An opportunity to work on some things and develop it and push it through. And that's what it's all about. It's all about, I think like you said earlier, discovery. With me, it's always been music discovery. It's taking that artist that may not be known, is new, and giving them opportunity. And then you look up, 3 years later, and he's one of the top artists in the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful, right? So I would be remiss, and I've seen this artist or mentions of this artist before. This artist, I think, is based in Dallas, and I'm getting quite a few people in the chat that are making mention of Project 88 Icon, I think it is. So I'm being transparent here. Don't know much about it, but clearly there's some passion level here. So some of the crew is asking, it's Project 88 Icon. Some of the crew here, like Black Cat, asking questions. What does it take for you to work with an artist? What type of things stand out to you and set apart a star from just an average artist?
I think what does it take for me? I mean, right now it takes, being signed to Epic Records.
Right,
I
you're not
talk to
doing
all
side
kinds.
projects right now. You got hands.
No. But I talk to everybody. Artists hit me every day through social media. People get my number. I'm not a hard guy to find. People, just a lot of people may not know who I am, but once you get me on your radar, I'm easy to find. And I point a lot of people. That's why I say I'll tell people to call Troy. I tell people to call Leroy McCaffrey. Different people.
Another good guy.
Right, whoever I feel like can help you at this moment. And what separates, I think, to me, just your uniqueness, your individuality. It's being you. A lot of people come out, and I know you've probably heard this, Terri, where they'll say, hey, look, my record's just as good as Chris Brown's. I'm the next Chris Brown. Be the first you. Be the first you. And I never forget. I came to when I came to Epic, and we were trying to build a roster, and we had an artist we signed off a mixtape named Young Future, and who became Future. And we had a single on Future, and literally nobody knew who he was. And I would go to radio and I would say, he's the guy that was on that Racks on Racks on Racks. And they're like, oh yeah, him. I'm like, yeah, that's Future. So I'm out with Future. We're out a lot for like the first year that he's here. And you get these calls about, hey, how's this artist? How they doing out there? And it was something about him. The first time that Benny called me about it, I said, well, how you doing out there? This, that, and the other. Because they want to know, are artists showing up late? Are artists doing this?
Can they handle their business?
Are they handling their business? And I said, he's a rock star. And he's like, what do you mean he's a rock star? I was like, he's a rock star like Jimi Hendrix. He's a rock star because Future was just so eccentric in how he got up and he dealt. Now, was he late? Yes, he was late.
He was like a rock star.
Yeah, he was late, but he was late like a rock star. Exactly. He was late, and then he was gonna make an entrance. And what was crazy about him? He was late, and usually, and you know this, Terri, when you show up at a station with an artist late, people aren't happy. It's like, this is unprofessional. This is Future was one of the only artists I had where he showed up late, and by the time he left the station, nobody remembered he showed up late. Mm-hmm. And
let's not make that a practice, people. Let me just put that out there.
No. Hey, look, because you got to have everything else together to pull that off.
Yeah, everybody doesn't get. Yeah.
You actually want to be there early if you can. But it gets challenging sometimes with road schedules and flights and different things like that. But I think one thing about the COVID, I think when it opens back up, everybody's gonna be early for a while because everybody misses that personal interaction now. All of the artists want to go on the road and do those things. But I know that's a long way around to answer that question, but just do you. And I think what lets me know you're special is you being special.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're all special in our own way, but there's a certain special that makes you have a billion screens.
Mm-hmm. Truth.
Yeah.
And with that, we're actually out of time. So that's a great place to end it. Hey,
look, thank you so much for having me, Terri. And let me give a quick shout out to Epic Records because I really appreciate Sylvia Rome and Tracy Adams allowing me to still have a platform to work with the greatest artists in the world.
I love it. So
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been an honor as always. I hope you'll come back and do it again.
Anytime.
So I've tagged Butch down here in the comments. So this is his Instagram. Please be respectful. But that's where you can find him. And then as we wrap up, I do want to share something really quickly. Butch and I connect as people. And I think that's one of the important things I think that you see throughout this is just really having respect and love for people. Butch gave me a book that Tony Brown, Les Brown Tony Brown. Okay, Tony Brown gave him, legend. And then Butch gifted me a copy of it, and I've gifted many people a copy of it. And so I do like to leave people something where they can sort of, you know, continue their education. It's a book that was originally written in the 1920s. It's by Florence Shinn, Shinn, and it's called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Now, when you read it, understand that some of the examples need to be put through the filter of it was written in the 1920s. But the information that you can get from this book can really change your outlook and can change your life. And I just wanted to pass that information along as I am here with the person who gifted me the book and started something from me as well. So The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Shinn. And I just want to say thanks again, Butch.
No problem. Thank you. It's a great book. Check it out.
All right, awesome. All right, Box family, y'all have a great day. Be well.
Bye now.